Okay, where's my? Oh, I don't have a real folder, okay. The whole,
So you're getting fancy
You
on
want
us using
that?
your laptop, huh?
yeah, have you got one real handy? Is
Oh,
that yours?
yeah.
Oh, I always have, yeah.
Well,
Just, I know, you know, I don't have a pass or hard copy, and I
Down to
don't
the
want to print it
second,
out,
so you're saying,
so I just kind of,
yeah,
This is Oaken Alley. Here goes on the parcel.
okay.
I always just print mine off at work.
Okay, that's what I couldn't, I drove by it and I said, okay, that doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
it's my money.
I keep
I don't
wondering,
either.
I keep wondering what's
This
gonna
is-
happen when I'm not working anymore,
is
because,
sad,
yeah,
right?
I have no computer at home, just an iPad, and no printer, I have to do
For
something
development standards, it's this one, and
every once in a while.
It's good.
it has to meet those 3 criteria.
So it's real
I
estate
forgot
going
to
up.
delete the other 2.
You know,
And it
it's still
does-
pretty
it
decent.
That one's good.
I mean,
Is there much
it's,
for
That one
sale?
is,
oh, I don't know. Not like I had been. And I do
Well,
think
that
prices
one-
are coming down a little bit.
Yeah. Well, interest rates are what, 6 point
I
something?
don't know, I knew they jumped last
So
week and I didn't really
It will
hear.
not meet the terms of the zoning ordinance.
I'm not a lender, so I don't really pay much attention to where they are.
Oh, I thought it'd be sensitive to your sales
I
potential.
think they're over
It doesn't
7%.
meet-
People, if, you know, I still think
This one's vague.
they're
but
good enough
probably
that
not.
people are still buying.
And I'm going to guess. the
But we are
citizens
going
in the
into quite-
audience
There's a
will
house
say
down
by
something
me
like they don't want it. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, but is it kind of in the back of these issues?
No, this is up, you know, on the back end borders up
Okay.
against the cross-country.
Yeah, okay.
Double.
I almost showed that and then they canceled on it.
Good evening.
That area.
Welcome to the
It's kind of weird.
Warsaw Board of Zoning Appeals, September 26. Approval of the August 22nd meeting minutes.
Mr. President, I've read the minutes, and if there are no further questions or comments, I would move to approve.
So moved,
I'll second that.
seconded by, God, we got a tie there. I'll give it to Tammy.
Give it to Jeff.
All those in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. Any dissensions? Minutes are approved. Unfinished business, Becca.
None.
New business, 2022-0901, 2321 East Market Street. Can you give us the history, please?
Yep. The petitioner has requested a variance from development standards to allow a parking lot at 2321 East Market Street. This parcel is on the corner of East Market and South Roosevelt Street and is bordered by commercial districts to the north and east and R2 residential zoning to the south and west. The petitioner would like to use the parking lot for customers at Oaken Alley who are currently using other parking lots in the area. Based on the site plan received, the parking lot dimensions would be 63 feet by 60 feet, cover about 47% of the lot, and span the entire width of the property. The parking lot will contain a maximum of 12 parking stalls to meet minimum stall square footage. The ingress and egress for the parking lot would be through the alley between the parcel and Oaken Alley. This parcel is included in the East Market Neighborhood Plan and is located within the area aimed to stabilize the residential neighborhood. The comprehensive plan states that these areas should be strictly managed to preserve the integrity of the neighborhood. Moreover, according to the current code, parking facilities in residential districts are permitted except in a front yard or the street side of a corner lot. The surrounding context includes 2 other parcels in the R2 residential district that contain parking lots along city streets.
Could I interrupt you for a second? Could you go back to that ordinance statement about parking lots? They can't be in the front yard?
They are permitted in residential districts except in a front yard or the street side of a corner lot.
And that, this is the street side of a corner lot.
Correct.
Got it. Go ahead, please.
The surrounding context includes 2 other parcels in the R2 residential district that contain parking lots along city streets. These parking lots are located on the same parcel as the business they serve. If the board approves this request, the petitioner will be required to conform to all design standards, including but not limited to stall minimum dimensions, grading for proper drainage, adequate lighting, and screening from residential uses. While approving this request will not be injurious to the public health, safety, and morals of the community, it could adversely affect adjacent properties through reduction in a transition zone between commercial uses and residential uses. Furthermore, the comprehensive plan identifies this area as needing to be preserved for residential, and this variance could reduce the possibility of the parcel to be used for residential purposes in the future. However, there is a need for more parking for the adjacent property, and this is one solution. Based on the surrounding context and use of the property, the planning department believes the board could approve or deny this request when delineated with the findings of facts.
Okay, what are the lighting restrictions for that parking lot? What needs to be completed on that?
So as our code states, it says adequate lighting shall be provided if facilities are used after 6 PM and shielded from surrounding uses.
And what would we consider adequate lighting for the parking lot where it's, would be?
That would be up to probably the planning department.
But that would be, there'd have to be floodlights of some sort.
Yes, there would have to be some lighting.
Okay. Thank you, Becca. Before we open it to the public, are there any questions from the board?
I'd ask if there were any input,
Yes, there was a letter, I believe, that was included in,
right? Was there anything else?
did you read that?
I did, yeah. Was there anything else, phone calls or anything?
Nope, this was it.
No, I asked that too, and there wasn't any, which
Oh,
kind of
I'm sorry, I
surprised
missed
me.
that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't ask tonight. I confirmed it again today earlier.
Well, and let's go back to the lighting. And I realize that's up to the plan commission to dictate what they, their requirements. But do you know right off the top of your head, Becca, that can they be on later than a certain hour at night? Or are they on 24/7, dusk to dawn?
I don't know specifically.
Okay.
However, my guess would be that.
Hours of
Adam-
operation.
Yep, they would need to be on for hours of operation.
And how late is Silicon Alley
Yeah.
open? Friday nights, I
Good
think it goes to
question.
like 10? Anybody?
Ask Tim.
Ask Tim.
How late are they open?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock?
What about
Very good.
Saturday night? Same?
Saturday night, I think it's 10 too.
Yep,
Okay.
it is.
Any other comments from the board?
What is the intentions for the house and the rest of the lawn? Is that going to be rental or sold?
Well, we'd have to wait till he comes up on that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we'll have to open it to the public for that. Any other questions or comments within the board? All right, thank you. All right, now we'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on behalf of the petition? That would be you.
As far as the house, it's rented.
It's rented?
Yep.
And you own the property, I assume? Okay. Is it rented now? Is it rented now?
Yes,
Okay.
she's moving in today, right?
Moving in today.
It's what?
He moving in today,
Yeah, yesterday.
yesterday.
And does he know the plan?
Oh, yes.
Okay. By the way, that's Tim Polk. He's speaking on behalf as the petitioner. He's getting to be my age, so we're not going to drag him up to the microphone. All right, is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of the petition? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to say something about not being in favor of the petition? I thought you might be the one, yes. You're young enough, you can walk up. Please state your name for the press.
Zach Evans.
Thank you, Zach.
My wife and I own the house next door, and I don't think that we are opposed to the parking lot necessarily, but we wrote the letter that you guys have in your packet there.
Yes, I thought that might be you.
And then, actually, one of the things that we did not think about, as you were mentioning, was the lighting. So I think that also comes into play as far as,
After being on this board for enough years, the lighting is usually a case problem.
yeah. So I think that, as I mentioned, that would still fall into more of the visibility. So the house windows, one of the living room windows, and then the kitchen window face in that general direction. The garage of the neighboring house there will block some of that for sure. And I think that's one of the things where we were saying extending the fence at a minimum down to the start of our house would also help significantly with kind of like that cross view.
Okay, now you've got the proposed length of the fence. Do we have a description of what that fence is going to look like or proposal?
We do
Okay.
not.
All right, go ahead, Zach.
Sure. So it's really just the visibility. And we were thinking initially, like if you were standing in the house and looking out the window, kind of the ambiance of seeing the cars there. But I do think that the lighting is perhaps even more of a concern than with the screening to make sure that anyone who's in the house isn't getting some kind of a floodlight in the window or anything along those lines.
Well, again, Zach, speaking on history, that lighting is going to be above a fence unless it's an awfully high fence, which is also against the zoning.
Sure.
So that'll bleed over. All right, any other comments?
I know, speaking with Becca, that the parking lot is, I guess, the item that's being approved or disapproved, but we just wanted to make sure, I think, once again, for us, it's the fence that's probably the bigger question as to will it adequately block visibility? Yeah, where will the lights be shining? And then also, I couldn't remember why, but I know one of the proposals might have actually had the fence being moved to our property. And if that's the case, then questions about who's maintaining it, what happens if someone drives through their parking.
Okay, Zach, sorry, did you say it was going to be on your property line, or?
I thought there was the potential that it was actually going to be on my property specifically.
Yeah. Since
Okay.
the current site plan has the parking lot on the property line, a fence would have to be placed on their property to correctly screen the parking lot.
I thought the law was they had to be 1 foot inside your own property for a
Fence
fence.
is going to go down the property line.
I'm sorry,
The
what?
fence will be going down the property line.
Down the property line?
Okay, I still raise the objection. It's my understanding it has to be 1 foot inside.
It can be on the property line.
It can be on the property line.
In this district, yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So who's responsible for maintaining that fence on the property line on Zach's side?
If it's on the property line, it would be the person who puts the fence in place.
Both sides.
Both sides? But on
If
Zach's side, where his house is, who's responsible for maintaining that part of the fence?
Tim.
Tim is?
But that would mean he'd have to,
You know, I'm just thinking of weed whacking and,
well, again, it depends. If it's a wood fence, you've got to do wood maintenance, which
Yeah.
means he's got to
Well-
walk on Zach's
Or vinyl.
property to
he
get there.
requested
Vinyl fence.
vinyl fence.
Yeah.
It's going to be a vinyl fence, for the record? Okay.
Don't have no maintenance, that's why.
Tim's tired of maintenance.
Tim's got enough people that work for him that can maintain that fence.
Zach, I have a couple of questions. One, have you had anybody tell you if this will affect the property value or not?
No.
Okay. Secondly, this is just FYI, you're entitled to have the pretty side of the fence facing you. The gut side has to be facing on the person putting it up.
Parking lot.
I'm going to guess Mr. Polk knows that as well.
No, well, that wasn't always the case in my experience. That's-
Yeah, I understand that too. I have seen it not followed.
Yeah, so there you go. You're not concerned about property value?
Oh, I'll bet he is.
I mean, I don't know if you have any comments, Amy, but I think that for us, there's not something that's tangible enough. We actually do short-term rentals for the house, and so I think unfortunately we wouldn't necessarily know if that was a major drawback to our occupancy until the work had been completed. So risk factor, yes. I don't know if there's anything tangible enough where I would strongly object to what's going on.
But you own the property now.
I do, yes.
Okay.
And what about the length of the fence and whatnot? Has that been worked out, or is that still an issue?
It's still proposed?
Correct. Looking at the plans, I thought the fence was in draft mode, and looking at kind of where the stakes of the parking lot were, I thought the drawing was the fence would basically stop where the parking lot stopped. So that's where our concern was. If that's the case, that's not really long enough. So either it would need to be screened along the other side of the parking lot, or maybe even better
Well,
from
you
a
would like the
light
fence to be
standpoint.
continuous, not.
Yeah, extended down
Okay.
further down the property line to block the
Have you and
visibility.
the owner talked about this, or is this just a new issue?
I'm sorry?
Have you and Mr. Polk talked about this, or is this a new issue tonight?
Once again, I don't know if I'd call it an issue. We talked about the height of the fence, and having seen the length, I think, I agree, 6 feet is nice. I think there was another
6 feet,
variation.
you can't go higher.
And,
The height.
Correct.
correct, the higher is
Okay, now
4.
the length, is that
Well,
something that you can work out, or what?
I'm sure that we probably can. Once again, I don't know if the fence was what was being decided here, but I did want to make sure that both of those were at least together, because my
Well,
bigger
there's
concern
two
is the
things.
fence.
It's still in a proposal phase, correct? And the fence height is restricted to
To
6
6
feet. So there will
Great.
not be anything higher than 6 unless we approve that, I assume. All right, any other questions? Okay. And it, I didn't go by it close enough. Is it already staked out for the parking lot?
I just went by it, no, I don't believe I saw something.
I didn't see that the last time I was over there.
I put the property lines on, just put stakes out there, no, I did not stake it out so I can measure out.
Oh, you just knew where it, okay.
All that and wait, so I'll go to lay in.
So you could see where it was.
Water's flowing right and everything.
The green stakes, the 3 foot, those are the back,
That's the back.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, sir, any other comments or questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. As there's no one else in the audience, I assume we can close this to the public. All right, this one's interesting.
Well, Mr. President, I have kind of a legal question, I guess. The city attorney is repeatedly telling us that we need to follow these 3 criteria on this sheet.
Correct.
And the last one is, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. The property is being rented. What is the practical difficulty in the use? How is this an exception? And I got the impression from the city attorney, this wasn't kind of a do whatever you want sort of thing. This was, you needed to find these 3 facts. or
Correct.
Otherwise, you don't have an exception.
Yeah,
So I'm at a loss there, because right now I don't see it.
you don't see an exception on that one.
I don't see the practical difficulty that this call, the strict application will result in practical difficulty. What's the practical difficulty? He's renting the property. That's what, it's being used. I'm open to somebody telling me, but that's where I'm at.
You're talking about the practical difficulty if we don't approve. Because there is no practical difficulty
The
if we
idea is the
don't.
practical difficulty, this property cannot be used for its intended use because of some practical difficulty.
Well, under the current ownership, that's correct. Because he's rented it and the renter already knows, but that's the current renter under the current owner. Right now, what's going to change dramatically to me is in an R2, you're going to take a backyard and turn it into a parking lot with lighting and marked out spaces. So whoever comes in there next is going to have a parking lot.
You're talking about Mr. Polk's property now.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because the backyard is on Mr. Polk's current property.
Right.
It's a backyard, and the proposal is he's going to turn it into a fenced-lined parking lot for Oak Alley.
Right, and according to this, as I understand the city attorney, we should only approve this if there's some reason why he cannot use this property for its current, for its intended use. And there's
Right, and that
residential.
does not make it an exception. That is not,
And
That's correct.
and there's no reason why it can't be used for what it's being used for right now, and that is as a rental property.
right. Yeah,
So
there is no practical difficulty because of what's going on right now today, correct?
That's correct, that's where I stand, and unfortunately, the city attorney's not here, but personally, I have a problem with that. He's made a big point of it.
No,
Over and over again.
that is correct. I mean, if you looked at that one, and I think there's another one that I thought was the use and value of the adjacent property not included. I would think that putting a parking lot next to a residential home would be an adverse effect. I mean, I'm not a realtor, but I would think that the future of that neighborhood, that would be in effect, my thinking is. That having a commercial, I mean, when you put a parking lot in, it then becomes kind of a parking lot. And there are a lot of people that could start using that and different hours, plus you've got the headlights going in and out. My thought is that would be a negative.
Well, and here's, I'm gonna play a little bit of maybe devil's advocate here, because I'm looking at this is that Mr. Polk owns both of these properties. And I'm not saying he's gonna do this, but who's to stop him from saying, if we don't approve this,
Yeah.
who's gonna stop, him from saying, oh, there's no parking out there, don't park over at Walgreens or whatever that is, go park in the backyard right there, in the grass.
Kind of the
Which would
Notre,
you rather have?
what you would have is the Notre Dame parking lot in the,
Yeah. And I'm sure the Evans would way rather have a privacy fence there and a nice paved where it looks nice, and I'm sure he'll, as long as the trash is picked up and,
Well,
et
no
cetera, et
question that
cetera,
that's going to be well maintained, yeah.
versus the fact that that could happen. I know I'm playing a little bit of,
No, that's a good point. I mean,
Well, Becca, what's the city ordinance on that? Do you know offhand? I thought you couldn't have commercial parking on, you have to have a paved surface for commercial parking.
You have to have impervious surface
So that'd be in
for
violation of
parking.
the city ordinances. And if anybody makes a complaint, then there's gonna be a problem.
right,
Yeah.
but that's a chance he'd have to take.
That's a chance you have to take, and it probably is gonna happen.
Well, the vast amount of his business is probably after that ordinance, whoever's fact checking that, unless the neighbors are gonna call in and say,
Well,
oh,
sure
by the
the neighbors
way.
gonna
yeah.
So I'm going to interrupt just
Okay.
briefly and remind us all that this is particular to this property, and if we approve this variance, it sticks
With the
with this
property.
property no matter who the owner is,
Right.
just to remind you all of that.
and you probably thought of this, but this could set a precedent.
I believe we are not supposed to.
Oh, yes,
set-
we are.
It could.
Because I've been on the board long enough that if you do it on one spot, you live with it again. I mean, we've all seen that happen, so
Well, in theory, it's not supposed to be a precedent, but yeah, you and I both know that's not the way it works.
it's not the way it works in reality, so. Okay, I think that 2 is questionable and 3, I don't think applies, is what I'm saying here. You agreed on 3.
I'm not sure what you mean when you say it doesn't apply.
It's not
It's not an exception?
correct.
Yeah, and I agree with that, yeah.
Okay.
Now, the rest of the board obviously has their own thoughts, but that's where I'm at here. And so
No, and I
it's-
agree with Tammy's comments. I mean, it could be a better choice.
And Amy's a realtor, aren't you still? I mean, what do you think about property values? I don't really think with a nice fence there, and as long as it's maintained, it's gonna really hurt your property values. How do you feel on that?
I agree, that would, do I need to speak? Okay.
I'm sorry, Amy, could you come on up here, please?
Tom's hard of hearing.
Like you're not.
I am.
I'm right there with
Sorry,
you.
I didn't mean to throw you under the bus too,
no, that's
but,
fine.
it's your property. What do you feel as far as property values?
From like a resale value, I wouldn't be concerned at all. I think with a nice fence and a well-maintained backyard, it's gonna be fine. What we have been seeing since the construction has started, it's an Airbnb. We get comments nightly. So the last handful of people have said, you advertise this as a family-friendly neighborhood, and it is from the front yard, but it's not from the back. And that's just like come out of the blue. We hadn't been seeing that before. So it's
Okay, Amy, I'm sorry. Are you talking about the property you're in now, or are you talking about both?
we're the neighbors,
Yeah.
but we rent it as a short-term rental. So
The
it's an
friends are what?
Airbnb. It's an
They don't
Airbnb.
live there.
They don't live there. It's an
Right.
Airbnb.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
So it could just be a fluke. Like, I don't know. It makes good money right now, and I don't, like, if I sold it tomorrow, I think I'd be fine. But are we gonna start seeing people not want to stay there because it feels more like you're in a business zone? I don't know.
That's a good
At
point.
least I don't have to cook dinner, I can walk right over there.
I know. Exactly. But then I hadn't thought at all about the lights, so that is probably more concerning. Because if you're sleeping in a new place anyway, it's difficult. Having more lighting coming in, it could be, I don't know. There's just a lot of unknowns, and from a resale value, I'm not concerned.
I don't think I'd be concerned either.
Thank you, Amy.
Well, that's number 2, and that's the nebulous. I don't, number 3 is the one that bothers me.
Okay, with number 3, we already know what your vote is. I agree with it. Anybody else? Where are we on number 3?
As the property sits right now, I agree. Number 3 doesn't apply.
I agree, yeah.
As it sits right now. Now,
So we,
Mr.
and,
Poe decides to tear the house down.
well, I'm not sure we can, now we're going into the future ball a little
Yeah.
bit farther. All right. Okay, we've got the proposal in front of us, 2022-0901.
Can I just throw this out?
Sure.
Would it make sense to table this and let Scott Royce review it and give us his opinion about number 3? Or do you want to just take a vote? I'm sorry he's not here. I wish he was. because
Yeah,
he's the one- he's the one-
actually, I made that comment earlier. I said this is not a good
He's the one
one.
that pushes us all the time about, we've got to find these 3 things. This is what it's all about, not the emotions of the moment in any particular scenario. So,
For the audience, in case you've not been to one of these meetings before, we're a government organization, quasi, but we're a government organization. We have to follow the codes. And we have these 3 that we have to follow and say, okay, we either agree or disagree to approve a zoning appeal. Whether we like it or not doesn't matter. I think we've covered a lot of good ground tonight, and we've covered the first 2 very well. Rick's comments, and Rick and I have been on this board for a long, long time, is that the strict application does not fit. In other words, you've already got the property, it's already doing fine. If we don't approve this, it's still going to be doing fine. That's basically what we're talking about. And that's where we have, the third one is the one that we, frankly, we'd all like to have the city attorney's comments on. Do you have a bulldozer in the wings that's going to start doing this parking lot tomorrow, or could we table this for 30 days?
Well, if you know it's 30 days down the road, I'd like to have it done before it gets too cold.
No, that I understand.
Something you can do when the weather gets bad.
That I know.
we have had special meetings before.
The fences,
Yeah, we could do that. We could have a special meeting. I just think it's unfortunate because this, as it sits, we can't approve it. That's why the delay, I think, is probably worth having because as far as I'm concerned, the attorney, our city attorney should make a comment on this. Because it's, again, as Rick was talking about earlier, we're bound by what we can approve and can't approve, and that has to fit these criteria. If it doesn't, we can't approve it. And that's why I asked, and I think all of us agreed, we probably aren't going to get by number 3, and all 3 have to be approved. And that's why I'm thinking it might help us and the petitioner, as we don't have too many other objections, if we do a table. And I would say, Becca, can we get a special meeting put together on the books fairly
But
quick?
Becca, you did send out a mailing. Evans are the only ones that responded to that.
Correct.
Correct.
And
I
you
mean,
hit the
I
whole
think that
neighborhood.
speaks for itself at the same time.
It does.
Yeah.
No, I think, again, it's, to me, we've done a lot of these in the past where it actually is going to benefit, as you described. And there's no objection from anybody in the neighborhood, including the next door neighbor. The question that I have is, can we, basically veto number 3?
Right.
And that's what he was commenting on. We get beat up by the attorney that we got to follow all 3. And 3 does not exist in this case. So I agree with Rick. I suggest that we vote to table this for whatever it takes, and we can probably put something together by Zoom if nothing else.
I believe we'll have to wait until the next Board of Zoning Appeals and have it be unfinished business
Really?
and vote on it then.
We
thought
can't
we
have a
could-
special meeting?
We've had special meetings in the past.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
before you, Becca.
Okay. I could be wrong.
Well, who coordinates this, you or Kim? Or both of you together?
Both
do, but we have to answer to.
And I think
Yeah.
right off the top of my head, I didn't bring in my phone. I'm almost positive I will not be here the next meeting, for what it's worth. I think I fly out really early the next morning out of Indianapolis.
Well, you can talk to Jeremy, can't you, or Justin, whoever you want to talk to, yeah. This may, anyway, we've had special meetings before for a, you got to get it done quick sort of a situation.
Well, we could also make a motion that we approved 1 and 2, and we're waiting on an opinion from the attorney for number 3, and then what he says, that may or may not require a meeting if we leave it to him. But I mean, it's clear, it's not there, so he would have to say that, okay, I understand.
I'd be surprised if Scott didn't have to address us about it.
Okay.
So according to state code, all 3 conditions have to be met
Yeah.
in order for it to be passed. It
Yeah,
can't
well,
just
that's
be
what we're talking
picking
about.
and choosing. And I think we have all the information that we're gonna have tonight. I don't think Scott is gonna bring new information about this particular case.
I have no new information, I would like his legal opinion. If it's clear that number 3, and if he says that's the way it is, it's an absolute, it's not, you get to pick and choose, then I'd feel more comfortable. with
Yeah,
my-
Becca's correct, but that's a good point. You are correct. If it doesn't have all 3, we're not supposed to do it. What Rick and I am looking for, and I'll speak if anybody disagrees, but I'd like his opinion on it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to table it. We can hope for a special meeting. If we
We'll find
can't, we'll find out. I know we've had them in the past, so they might be
I'll move
available.
on that request, I'll make that motion.
You make the motion, Tammy seconds.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any dissension? All right, that carries.
Okay.
Mr. Polk, on benefit, we're going to get this done as quick as we can. I understand about construction. Sometimes our hands are just tied on silly things like this. It's not silly, but it's the way it is. So
Yeah.
my apologies for the delay, but with what we have to deal with, we have to do it by the book. And that's what the book says.
2, 3 weeks?
I wish I could hear you, sir. What?
I said, do you think it'd be 2, 3 weeks, or?
Well, it won't be any longer than 4, because we'll have another meeting then. And, if Old Man Winter comes early, I'm sorry, but, 4 weeks, we might be able to get it done. If, my opinion, I will request that we do a special meeting, get the opinion, and wrap it up.
Becca, you can have Scott and you and he and Justin on your own to talk about it initially.
Initially, yes, but the
Yeah.
board will have
The board
to
doesn't get
be.
together, but I
Yeah.
mean, he can get an idea of where things are headed real quick. If Scott says, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is, then,
Right.
then
Right, but
he can
if
make a
Scott
move.
says it's okay, he cannot start until the board
Right, well,
approves
then
it.
Right.
you're gonna have to get us together.
Well, I think he
Chop,
can,
chop.
no matter what he says, we've still got to get together.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
But
well,
at
we've got
least he
it
can
tabled,
make a
we've got it
decision.
approved for tabling.
okay.
Okay.
That's where that is. All right, again, any other matters before the board?
None.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Wow, you guys are just moving along.
She's
All the-
been here like way too long. It's past my bedtime tonight. No, I can't. I mean, this was over my 10-minute limit.
Somebody kill the mic.
She's right,
Did you second it?
Yes.
Okay, we all.
All those in favor?
I
Aye.
seconded it, and then I went on my little rant.
Yeah, but the mic was still on.
Yeah, Kim, what is the
Still is
next
on.
meeting? What is it?